Recently, I made a video stating how I am just now coming to appreciate the value of a Reflex red dot sight on a carry gun, like the one here on my SIG P320. I think they make using your carry gun quickly and accurately far easier. Well, a lot of people have said to me, well, since you love these so much, how come you never really give any love to regular laser sights? Aren't they basically the same thing? Well, they work on a similar principle, but they are definitely not the same thing. And there are several reasons why I prefer the Reflex red dot sight over the laser sight. First, with a red dot laser sight, it actually casts a laser out there. You actually put a dot on the target you're shooting at. The laser dot is on that target physically. With the Reflex red dot sight, the red dot is actually up here in the aperture window. It's with you at all times. So it's not on the target, it's here with the gun. First, let's talk about the advantages of the standard laser sight. The standard laser sight has one really big advantage over a red dot sight or any other type of sight for that matter, and that is it does put the dot, like I said, on the target. So if you cannot extend your arm or raise your gun high enough to get a proper sight line, you can still see where your gun is aimed. You're going to see where that bullet's going to hit. Now, that's a huge advantage. Is it a big enough advantage to make it worthwhile for my carry gun? I don't know if it is or not, because if I'm shooting from the hip or with my arm not extended, my target is probably right on top of me, so I probably don't even need that laser dot sight. But, if you feel differently about it, well, then it might be worth having a laser dot on your gun. But for me, I really don't know if that's a big enough of an advantage to make it worth having that on my gun. Now let's talk about what I think is the main disadvantage of a laser sight. Now, keep in mind, we're taking for granted that they both work equally easily, that when you need them, they're going to be on and they're going to be working. And that's the way we're basing this comparison here. So don't be worrying about, well, one's harder to activate or one's easier to activate. Both of these options come with a function now that allows them to come on immediately after you pull them out of the holster, if that's what you want to do, or anything up to that. So it's up to you how easy they are to use. So let's look at the big disadvantage of this sight. And the big disadvantage of this sight is pretty much the same thing as its advantage. It's that the gun doesn't have to be in front of you. It doesn't have to have a proper sight alignment. So it promotes laziness. People start looking for that red dot instead of looking at their gun. Instead of having their gun in the picture, in their sight picture, they just look for the red dot. And that is a big disadvantage to me because it promotes laziness. It causes you to do things in a way that just aren't the proper way to do it, even if you're able to do it the proper way. So that's one of the things I don't like about the laser sights. That's actually the major thing I don't like about the laser sight. I see people all the time getting lazy with them, spending their time looking for the dot instead of looking at their target or their sights. And that I don't like. It's a major disadvantage. In fact, to me, that overrides the advantage of a laser sight. Now with the Reflex red dot sight, you do have that disadvantage, I guess, that you cannot see the dot unless the gun is in your sight line. But to me, that's an advantage because it promotes proper use of your gun. Like I say, if I have to shoot from the hip, they're probably right here, so it's not going to matter. With the Reflex red dot sight, you have to bring the gun up properly to use them, and that promotes proper use of your gun. It promotes good habits. So that right there is the main reason I prefer the Reflex red dot sights, because you still use your gun properly, you use proper form, but you have an aid to actually hit your target. So that's the main reason that I like the Reflex red dot sights better than laser sights. But let's go on to a few other things that I think that the Reflex sights have a huge advantage in. Now, another big advantage I think the Reflex sight has over the laser sight is that you see your red dot constantly if you maintain proper grip of your gun and proper alignment of your gun. Even if the target moves, you still see your red dot. You're able to track them with that red dot more easily. With a laser dot, if the target moves away from the dot, you lose the dot in the background. So you have to reacquire the dot. That's a big difference. When I'm using the Reflex sight, I can hit swinging bottles easily because I can anticipate the shot more and I can follow the target better with the red dot. With a laser sight, not so much. Now let's get to what I think is the biggest advantage for people like myself who have old eyes of a reflex red dot sight. And that is, it's going to be bigger on your target. It's closer to you. You can focus through to your target, but you can still see that red dot because it's right in front of you. With the laser dot sight, it's quite a ways away. If you have bad vision, it's a little bit hard to acquire, especially if the person is wearing brightly colored clothing or it's bright outside. Now, let's take look at this. Let's actually give you a physical example here. Now, I had to think hard about this because I didn't want people getting sensitive about what target I chose to actually do a dramatization with here because, people are getting touchy about even the color of ink on targets now. So I had to choose a target that I don't think is going to fall into any stereotypes. So keeping that in mind, let's say you have to shoot at some old Asian woman who's rushing at you with a bomb in a laundry basket. And you have to use both of these sights. Well, let's look at it with the red dot laser sight, just the regular laser sight. Can you pick it up here? Well, that's a little hard to see. It's right there. Well, if you had the reflex red dot sight, well, you can easily see where it's at. You can see right here, there it is. Kind of hard to miss. This is at a range of about 10 yards. So at 10 yards, you can see that laser dot sight is tiny, but the reflex red dot is huge. It's going to cover a good portion of the target at a close range like 10 yards. And even if you go out to 100 yards, it's going to be far more visible. You're never going to lose your dot with your reflex sight like you can your laser sight, especially at long distances. As you can see here in the two pictures, it's so much easier to see the big one. And even if you switch to like a green light, which is easier to pick up, the red big dot is still going to be easier to pick up even than the green dot at any distances, even at just 10 yards. And if your distance vision is going as well as your close-up vision, like now my distance vision is starting to go. So the target is actually going to look more like this. And as you can see on the left here, the red dot laser sight gets blurry just like the person does, just like my target. Whereas with the reflex sight, the target gets blurry, but the dot stays in focus because it's in that sweet spot as far as my vision is concerned. So just after those few reasons right there, I think you can see why I think a reflex red dot sight is far more valuable than a laser sight. They don't do the same things. This has far more advantages and far fewer disadvantages. The reflex sight just doesn't have as many disadvantages as the laser sight, and like I said, it has more advantages, so I like it better. Now, you're going to have to make up your own mind which is more valuable to you, but I think for most people, in most situations, the reflex red dot sights beat laser sights any day of the week.